Hello and welcome to another session of Industry Week 2022. We are really pleased to have with us Jamie Searls. A little bit about him in a minute, but just a reminder that you can still join some events later on today and tomorrow. If you go to the website and book your tickets, we have virtual and in-person slots left. We are so thrilled with how it's been going this week. We've had some amazing sessions. You can win prizes if you screen grab or photograph and hashtag IW22. If you're in the final year of your undergraduate course, then if you go to the Now Learning Room next week, the employability team are on hand to help you with those next vital steps. And in fact, this session is partly because of that, because Tileyard runs some amazing master's degrees, and you might be considering what your next step is in education. So we've got the perfect person here to talk about that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Jamie. And Jamie, if you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what Tileyard does.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. This is an amazing setup, by the way. It just looks so sharp, just brilliant, really great. So basically, I am head of A&R and commercial partnerships at Tileyard Education, which is probably something that you might think, well, that's a bit of an odd title for an education or postgraduate training facility, really. And I guess it's by virtue of where we are. So I work in Tileyard, London, and Tileyard is Europe's largest professional music community. So it's home to over 250 music and entertainment businesses. It's home to over 85 recording studios and over 1,500 working professionals. So a lot of people milling around this area. And we're just a hop, skip, and a jump from King's Cross, for about a 10-minute walk. But what's been really exciting is over the last sort of 10 years, since the inception of Tileyard itself, it's grown into this community quite organically, actually. And then we kind of thought maybe about 6-7 years ago, why don't we set up an education space? I mean, if there's all these people wanting to connect, that makes sense. So I guess the whole idea of, and I'm sure many people who are on the call today have that idea of, I've got a load of songs, or I want to get involved in the music industry, but I don't know the right people, or I don't know which doors to knock on, I don't know where to start. It can feel quite an overwhelming process. And I think Tileyard is really, like any good entrepreneurial idea, is a kind of an antidote to that issue, that we're solving a problem. And I like to think we're doing that. So yeah, we set up the education space 5 years ago. We started taking students. Obviously, our MA Commercial Songwriting and Production is validated by Nottingham Trent University and Confetti. And then we also have other MAs in sort of commercial music production, music business, and international music marketing. And the whole idea is that we're sort of creating an incubator, right? So maybe we take in around 20 students per MA, and then we incubate them throughout that year, and then I guess give them lots of different opportunities. We do a commercial songwriting camp in each term. So for the first term, you're on site, and the second term, you're on site, and then the third term, we do it internationally. We've been to Nashville before, we've been to Stockholm, and we've been to Malmo and Copenhagen. We're going to Malmo and Copenhagen again this year, and people are signing real deals. You know, this isn't just something we're talking about, and the proof is in the pudding. And the last 2 months, so, you know, since the start of the year, we've signed over 70 single song agreements across 3 production albums, 2 for Felt Music and 1 for BMG. You know, they're tangible opportunities, and that's not just for our students, it's for our alumni as well. So you don't just get these opportunities as you study, you get them afterwards. You might be asking why, how? We send out this thing called Brief of the Week. So we get commercial briefs from all the major labels, the management teams, publishing companies, and I get them, I filter them, and then I send them out to every single student and alumnus that has ever studied with us. They then send them back to us, and then we have an A&R team working within Tileyard Education, and we filter it back out. You sign a deal, you sign a deal. And it's really exciting, you know, and you know, that you know, in the camp, the international camp in Copenhagen in 2019, we had a major deal signed with a Chinese artist, you know, and that's tens of thousands. So you can, you know, make your money back on what you study. So that for me is really exciting. The idea that we're just creating these opportunities. So that's kind of Tileyard in a nutshell, I hope.
That's really well described. I think the community aspect, Jamie, as someone who visits a couple of times a year, to see it grow over the last 4 years I've been there, it's really nice to go in the cafe and just see there's a music publisher, there's a label, there's an A&R person, and those informal chats you have over a cup of tea often are how your career can just progress, isn't it? And I think the facilities down there, it's worth just expanding a little bit about what you've got down there too.
Yeah, so we've got a recording studio that was designed by Chris Walls, a floating studio. I don't speak geek, so I don't know the ins and outs of it. I wish I did. But I know that it's meant to be an amazing studio. In fact, I mean, the proof is in the pudding again. You've got like Sam Smith, who's recorded there, Paloma Faith, Duke Dumont, just to name just a few people in the last year alone. And the great thing is that's also a student space. So the idea that you can be in there and, teaching on walk past you is kind of, I think, quite an exciting idea, even for anyone who's working within the music industry. So that sense of real connectivity is something that I think is really exciting, but also the fact that we have 85 recording studios on site. But for our actual students, we've got writing rooms. I think we've got about 4 writing rooms. We've got a studio and a live room, and they all click into one another, and you get access to them for your 3rd term project as well. And you actually get access to all the studio, or so the writing room facilities throughout the entire year. And the great thing is the actual, in terms of our vacancy rate, it's still about 70%. There's only 30% used. So we want them to be used.
Yeah.
If you're going to be on site, use the facilities. And the great thing is, for those that don't want to be on site, we also do the MAs online as well. So if you're happy wherever you are, we do a lot of these facilities, or I guess networking nights online, so you can connect still with the community at Tileyard, but from the comfort of your own home.
Brilliant. That was well summed up, Jamie. We're here to talk about a couple of things, really. Tileyard and the courses, which we've looked at briefly, but also we've excitedly run a scholarship for the first time with Tileyard, and we have 2 places on your Easter songwriting camps. So we're going to listen to 5 shortlisted tracks out of a numerous amount we had for about 90 seconds-ish, and then we're going to just have a little bit of a comment on it before we actually announce the 2 winners. But before we move on to that, what sort of things could they expect to do at a songwriting camp? How will it work?
Yeah, good question. So the songwriting camp, I believe this one we're going to be holding in July. I'm not too sure. And it potentially is going to be in Wakefield. It's going to be quite a little bit close to you guys in our new site that we're actually doing, which is, I think, going to be really exciting for everyone. So in short, what you can expect on a songwriting camp is interesting one. I think it can be quite overwhelming, actually. So I like to get that out the way first. It's quite full on. You go in there as a songwriter or a producer. You're put into a room with people you might not have met before, or you might not click with, but then you have those golden moments where actually you might write with someone that you're like, this is the most amazing team I've ever written with. I had Emma Horan, who's one of our really successful songwriters that graduated from the MA Commercial Songwriting Production course, actually is a really good example of this. She does a whole video of what it's like to be on a songwriting camp. So you guys should check it out, Emma Horan, and you can check that out on YouTube. But a really wonderful video, because it gives you an idea of getting up in the morning, excited, having some food, chatting with everyone, getting into the room, sharing ideas, being exhausted. Some of the things that you probably might not expect from a songwriting camp is the exhaustion that you feel afterwards, because your brain is just using so much energy throughout the day trying to create different ideas, think of different things. You leave, and I always say, make sure you have good food, you sleep well afterwards, because you need that for the next day. And it's like a boot camp. And by the end of it, you should leave. It's usually about 4 days. You should leave with 4 professionally mixed tracks. So we put you in rooms with either professional producers or songwriters and mix up different talents. And it can be really exciting. And, in our last summer camp, I think last year, every single person signed a single song agreement. So that's something that we're hugely passionate about, and I'm hoping to continue in the future.
Amazing. It sounds great. Okay, well, I think without further ado, let's go through the first songs. Let's have about 90 seconds worth of, this is Fab Fox, which has the best name in the world. If I was called anything, it would be Fab Fox. So via deed poll, I am going to go there. So Fab, if you're in the room, this is your track.
Y'all to the UK. This one's for my close friend. Yeah. No, tell them about. Dime si tú aún quieres a tu lado. Dime si tú aún me quieres a tu lado. La bebé hoy quiere beber, la bebé no quiere bailar. La bebé hoy quiere beber, la bebé no quiere bailar. Voy tirado pa' allá, voy tirado pa' allá. Si no me quieres a tu lado me voy más. Voy tirado pa' allá, voy tirado pa' allá. Si no me quieres a tu lado me voy. Hay pena que sana, la rompí no fue en cuatro. Cara revela el odor que hice y fue tanto. Aunque te pida perdón, no fue mi mejor versión. Aunque lo digo corazón, tú desconoces mi intención. Estar contigo, bebé, eso fue mi bendición. Esta relación fue de pasión, no un segundo, una perdición. No podemos ser para un minuto, pelea tras pelea, hemos perdido el tacto. Tu mamá y tu familia me odian, es el pacto. ¿Dónde está el amor que tanto hacía cuando estaba en el cuarto? ¿Dónde está el amor que tanto hacía cuando estaba en el cuarto? Te tenía en cuatro, bebé, abierta para mí, tú sabes que yo te doy. La bebé hoy quiere beber, la bebé no quiere bailar. La bebé hoy quiere beber, la bebé no quiere bailar. Voy tirado pa' allá, voy tirado pa' allá. Si no me quieres a tu lado me voy.
Wicked. Jamie, with your A&R ears, what can you tell us?
Well, I mean, firstly, one of the big things with A&R, I always say to our own students and to anyone who joins the songwriting camps is, it often, and this might actually earn me some, other A&Rs may say differently, but this is what my opinion is. It doesn't need to be the most creatively interesting or sort of groundbreaking track. What it does need to be is professional sounding. So that means it needs to be mixed. It needs to sound nice in my speakers. It needs to be something that I have, kind of little effort to do. And that could be quite confusing, I think, for some people when they're starting out, because they're thinking, well, it's a demo. If I'm sending you a demo, you're going to change it. Unfortunately, that's not the case. In 2022, if you're going to be pitching your music, either for yourself or for, I guess, for a brief, it just needs to be perfect. And that sounds really, might sound a little bit tricky, but you have the tools at your sort of disposal, whether it's studying at Confetti, whether it's studying at Tileyard, whether it's looking at YouTube videos. The tools are there. It's just about really sort of finessing the sound. And it's mixing is kind of an art form in itself. So to refer to this track in itself, I believe this was written to the brief, and maybe when I read out the brief, will that be kind of helpful?
Yeah, that's a really good idea, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so
two aspects, weren't there? You could submit it to the brief or just submit a song.
yeah, and I'll just put it in the let me put it in the chat so everyone has this. I can share it with everyone because I think it's probably
And Fab is in the meeting, so maybe Fab has some feedback of his own.
Yeah, that would be cool for him to join.
Share.
What I'll do is I'll just read out. So basically what the brief is, so this was the brief. We're looking for tracks that lean towards a fun trap focus, a nod to the popular genres that we're hearing on the TikTok platform. That's what my parents would say. We have a good amount of dreamy, moody trap style tracks in the catalog and some heavy and dark, but not a huge amount of positive, catchy trap pop. It's very important that tracks are fun, confident, and upbeat. Don't be afraid to be as cutting edge as possible, compositionally and production wise. And then there's some visual references and some Spotify references as well. And they give some actual notes as well in terms of the tracks. They need to sound very hooky, both melodically and lyrically. So when we refer to Fab's track there, I think that is something that I would pitch for that brief. The only thing that I would say, I think it's compositionally interesting. I think it's also incredibly hooky. The only thing I think they might turn around and say is it's slightly more Afro beats than trappy, sort of at least by a UK sensibility or a TikTok.
Yeah.
But because it sounds good, and because it's of a great demo standard, I could pitch that. So I think that's probably something that is good to think about, because it doesn't need to be sometimes absolutely nailing every part of the beat, but if it nails all those little parts and it sounds good, and I know that I can pitch that, and the publisher or the manager or the record label that that's going to listen to is going to say, right, Jamie knows knows a track that is of professional standard.
Yeah.
And some students say to me, why can't you just send it and like give me feedback? And I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
Because my reputation with these labels is based on quality assurance. And if
Yeah.
I send them something that isn't up to scratch, it means that they're not going to want to work with me, or they're just going to delete my email. So my reputation is just as important as the reputation that you're building. So keeping that in mind is important. So
That's a really brilliant. That's a brilliant point, actually. So Fab, you said that was one that you didn't go to brief, but you might, if you turn your mic on, you'll be able to talk to us if you would like to, and if you want to tell us a little bit about how you put that track together, that I think that would be interesting.
Hello.
Hi, Fab.
Fab, hello.
Hello, you're right, guys. Yeah, I'm just in the library at the moment, so I'm gonna try and keep it down. Yeah, thank you for playing the track. By the way, I really appreciate that. Yeah, it was written last year on my year 2 of my music technology course, and it kind of like it just came together. Like I remember the guy I was in the room with, the Venezuelan guy who's on the track. He was like humming something, and it just sounded nice to me. So we just went from there. I was just like, write that down, and then I ran down the corridor, got a guy I know who plays guitar. Got him to play like a melody, and then between me and the Venezuelan guy, we just sort of built the instrumental up, and yeah, just wrote some lyrics. Got a girl to come in and do like a vocal sample for us, and yeah, it's just kind of like I think it's a turning point and a realization for me, like knowing that I can actually produce songs as well as like just make beats, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's a bit of a learning curve, but yeah, it's like about a year ago I made it, I think.
The bass line's really catchy, the beat's really catchy, and the chorus, despite it not being in English, I can remember that from the first time I heard it, and it just made me feel happy. And it's definitely a modern pop thing you could hear on radio. I loved
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fab. On to the next one then, and the next one is Isha.
I miss seeing you coming out the shower with your wet hair, and I miss those views, driving around for hours, going nowhere. When you're not around, I still miss the sound of your voice. You leave me no choice. I don't mind waiting around, got nothing better to do. It's alright if we lay all night, I'm happy with you. I don't mind waiting around, got nothing better to do. It's alright if we lay all night, I'm happy with you. We're driving fast in your car. I wanna make it last, never be apart.
Thank you for that. That was one not written to the brief, but an open submission. What do you think to that?
I mean, I think it's great. I think why we chose these tracks, I mean, they're all quite different, right? And why we shortlisted them. And I think this is a great example of one why it's different, because I think the idea is really, really interesting. And I really like this person's voice. It's Aisha, is that right? Or Isha?
Isha, I think.
Isha, sorry. And I think there's learning. And actually, I think these sessions are really good for everybody, because it's not just the people that are submitting these, that I think there's some learning in this, but I think it's actually everyone that's attending, because for me, that track is a great track. I think it's interesting. I think there are some elements that need a good bit of work. So for instance, there's some tuning issues. So, and that's really easily fixed. You can use, software systems like Melodyne. If you don't have the money for Melodyne, you can use plugins like Waveform. that just mean you can go in and literally just change the note, because nobody's pitch perfect, right? Not even the most amazing vocalist around, very few anyway. So it's just about like kind of just finessing those sounds so that they are all working together. Also the vocal on top of the instrumental is just a little, it's not quite marrying perfectly. And these are quite specific. So for this reason, even though I creatively really like this track, I couldn't pitch it.
Yeah.
I think that's important to realize, because that's a brilliant track. And I think the ideas are there. I mean, I would say melodically, there could be some more interesting ideas, particularly in the chorus. But I think it's a brilliant effort. And actually, I'm excited to see where Aisha develops this.
Yeah, I think she's having trouble with her mic, but if you can hear us and can talk,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about that song then.
So it was a follow-up from my first song that I released, and someone wanted to collaborate with me, so they sent me a track, and then I recorded my vocals to it, and that was it really.
Who are you inspired by?
Oh, so many people. I kind of like, even though it doesn't show, I kind of like sort of heavy rock, but I like the sort of lo-fi kind of vibe as well. So anywhere in between that. But it's really hard.
I hear the lo-fi element for sure.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that, you've got a bit of a Aurora vibe to your voice.
I do like her as well. I like her voice definitely. So
I think look at what she does with her choruses as well. Her choruses are quite exciting, and I appreciate if you're doing the lo-fi thing, then you've nailed it, and you're doing really well. I think you could still put in some really exciting melodic elements that just create a little bit more dynamic interest. But also, I appreciate if it's an artist project, you kind of have to go on your own journey and learn as you develop yourself. But don't be afraid to develop more, because
definitely
it's really great. And definitely
I just stuck to my comfort zone on that song, because it was still quite new. It's still new now, but yeah, I'll definitely take that on board. Thank you.
No worries, bravo.
Thank you.
It sounded like it was written from the heart though, and it definitely moved me. So well done, you.
Thank you.
Well done. Gosh, such a variety. Okay, we're on to Ellie. So Ellie Torrance, I think, is in here as well. So let's listen to some of hers.
It didn't take me long, though I didn't see myself walking free in the meadow of your heart, with the moon reflecting my sins. You're like tea in the morning, and the feeling of warm sun on my face. No wonder you wore me so thin, and I wouldn't change it in any way. We both might be broken in parts, but nothing can love like a fragmented heart. No matter where I will go, I know that by your side is my home. If you hold me long enough, I'll slowly breathe out the person I've been. Then maybe I can be worthy of you, and the things you say can be real, 'cause I've got a past to dwell on.
I feel like I need a hug after that. I don't know about you, Jamie. Maybe a virtual hug from London to Nottingham. But that was a some really beautiful lyrics there. What do you think?
I mean, I think the lyrics were really great. Yeah, I'm actually curious. Is Ellie around that she can tell us a little bit about?
Ellie is here. So Ellie, would you like to give us a bit of a story behind the song?
Hi. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wrote that song during the lockdown, and I was kind of in a bit of a transition period in my life where I was kind of letting go of things that happened in the past and trying to move forward. And it's sort of a love song, but it's kind of got that melancholy vibe as well. It's kind of happy and sad, which is what I was aiming to do. I hope that came across.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really great track. I loved the chorus. I just felt you told a story really looked beautifully.
Thank you.
I felt it was actually quite dynamic as well. I think probably the only thing that I would work on again is, and probably everyone on this call is going to be just like blue in the face for me saying it, but vocal mixing. So the mix, but this is kind of a polishing thing that is very common, particularly with singer-songwriters, to really develop. And something we actually have to work a lot with our students on our MA course as well, which is that sense of really just kind of making a great vocal sound perfect and seamless with the track, like it's always been there.
Okay.
It's slightly sitting on top. But I mean, that's me being quite, picky. And that
I think it's important though, Jamie, in like 2022, that
Okay.
the pop vocal sound is pristine, isn't it? So on one hand you can go, well, let's fit in with that. On the other hand, you can go, well, if it's tearing at your heartstrings, you might want it a little more raw. But the production of it is so important, as you said earlier. It's got to be perfect and release ready, really, haven't you?
And I say, yeah, you're right. And the point that you make there about is 2022, so I can remember. And I think the really important thing to remember about that is there are these tools at your disposal. And Emenike, who, studio Thailand as well, and he's someone that says this all the time. He says, if you're a singer-songwriter, you need to concern yourselves with the basics of Logic. At the very least, you need to concern yourselves with production skills. And I say this all the time. The briefs that I get in every week, a lot of them, sometimes 50% of the briefs I get in are instrumentals. That means a songwriter can go at home and say, right, you know what, Jamie's just sent me out that brief, 2 years time, 3 years time, great. I'd love to whack this on, then let's see what happens. And if I know a lot of the time the good songwriters that have worked on that as a craft, that understand that skill set and kind of value that, it's just so important. And so concerning yourself with that over these next couple of years, Ellie, is going to really, it's going to open doors for you.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Good, great feedback, Jamie. Different again, we've got Finn. Different again. Jamie, what do you think?
It's great. This is why, he's made all the shortlists. I think, again, just a really great track, really fun. I think it's interesting. Again, I'd love to talk to Finn a little bit about why he created this track as well and what his influences were. because obviously that was written as a solo project, but I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
Finn, you're on now.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Brilliant. Finn,
Can you hear
tell
me?
us about it.
Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's quite. I made that track about a year ago in a Mac suite in Confetti. like I started it then anyway. And was it? Were you asking why I made it? Was that the question?
Yeah. What was the inspiration around it? Can you talk to me a little bit about the creation of it? What motivated you to write
So
that?
like in terms of the sound of it, I've been making hip hop for a while, and I wanted to basically rap over something a little bit more like house, like a little just something with a kick on every beat, you know. So I wanted to make something like that. So that's where the inspiration for the track came from, and all the vocal chops and everything that I threw in there as well was that sort of vibe. And I've leaned into that a lot more since then. I released this track about a year ago now, and I want to like push that forward a little bit more. But yeah, I just have fun with the sound. And then in terms of the lyrics, I write lyrics like pretty separate from when I produce, and they marry together quite late on in the process, I think. But yeah.
Wow, cool. Yeah, it's just really interesting. I think it's always also interesting for other people on the call to kind of find out your creative process and how you arrived at that. Because for me, it was a really exciting track. I thought it married really well together. It's interesting that you wrote this completely separately, and actually it feels like it's so married to the song. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank
I
you.
think the challenge with this as a genre in terms of commercializing, because that's where I come in, right? Where I would find a home for that. I mean, I'm just going by a lot of the briefs that I'm being asked for. So a lot of the briefs that I tend to be asked for are commercial pop, you know, sort of movie stuff, or it can be varied, really. I think as an artist project, this is really exciting. In terms of me trying to pitch it for things, there's just not a huge amount of people asking for sort of British sounding hip hop. And yet you kind of wonder why.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's such an exciting kind of mix. And I think there's probably the more of the stuff I'm kind of pitched tends to be sort of more Afrobeaty, sort of like more trappier. But that is, I really enjoyed it, and I think you need to keep making songs like this, because it's you know, I always say when I'm feeding back on someone's artist project, I'm sort of a bit hesitant, because I can tell you what I would change from a commercial aspect or from a release aspect.
Yeah.
But I'm also conscious that this is your artistic journey. And I'm kind of touching that before, but I really believe in that. I think some people, particularly artists, are really like focused on the end goal. How am I getting there? And actually, it really is about the journey, and knowing that you can only compare Finn today to Finn 6 months ago. Not, you know, someone who's, you know, LL Cool J, whatever. You know what I mean?
That's a fair point to make, yeah. And that track is Finn a year ago, so there's that to bear in mind as well. But there's also like, I had a point, it's just slipped my mind. But yeah, I was gonna say, like, in terms of pitching and things, I've been thinking, because I agree with you, I don't think that track's very pitchable. Like, it's quite weird, but without vocals on it or something like that, there are other options and things I've been trying to.
But here's the thing as well, Finn, maybe that's its greatest strength, particularly if you're an artist and you want to release that as an artist project. Do you know what I mean? So I think sitting with that and just thinking about what your next step is in terms of releasing this to the world, as it were, is thinking about what your point of difference is and where it can fit in, you know, on different playlists, in PR, what kind, where might your audience be?
Yeah.
And that therein lies the issue. And listen, there's lots of money being plugged into, or, you know, I guess invested into answering that question for artists that are signed by major labels and management teams. But you can do that. You know, you've got the internet at your disposal. It sounds really obvious, but you know, we have a songwriter actually on one of our courses, an MA commercial songwriting and production student this year, and she's really interesting. Like, we do these things called A&R surgeries, sort of like this, but one-on-ones. So we have one-on-ones, one per term, and we chat a little bit about where you are and where you want to go. She was talking to me in this surgery, and she was like, I was like, how are you getting over 100,000 listens on your tracks? And she was like, oh, well, you know, I've basically been, you know, chatting to lots of different playlisters, finding out their personal details on Instagram or email addresses, developing the relationships with them. And then I've just like been pitching my songs as they go along. And I just was like, you have a business. Forget about the music. You have a business. You can start doing this for your, you know, for students, other students, and for other artists out there. They'll pay good money for that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know? So I think it's about thinking about, so where are your playlists? Where are your community? And developing those relationships really authentically is going to be something that I think, Finn, you could do in your own spare time.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
That was really interesting, Finn and Jamie, that conversation, the version where you're weighing up artistic endeavours through commercial endeavours, because they can be one of the same, there can be different things. And actually, Jamie, your ears as a commercial A&R, it's just fascinating to hear. Thanks for sharing that. And we have one more. Philippe, is Philippe here? I've not seen you on the chat list, but we've got Philippe. We've got 90 seconds to find him while we listen to Philippe's track.
Married to the game, yeah, I'm married to the pain. Look, I never changed, I'm stacking up this cane. Bro, I think crazy, yeah, my body K. Yeah, we never change, but we lit the flame. This flow is cold like a river. I got the top down if you wanna play with a sinner. Put it down south, cause I got me a winner. Can't play with no fake, cause it's built like a trigger. This flow is cold like a river. I got the top down if you wanna play with a sinner. Put it down south, cause I got me a winner. Can't play with no fake, cause it's built like a trigger. I run it in the south and I run it on the west side too. Friends are playing both sides, I hate to be in their shoes. They all about the cash, the narrow, all in their loot. But when you die, yeah, there's no way of taking that too. So I try and be civil with it. Put a diamond in the dirt and put pressure in it. 100 racks inside the band that didn't face the kid. I've been through some pain, the money didn't change that shit. And I don't even get into no altercations. If they try to fold it, that's the path they're taking. Life is so hard, I can't unbind and chasing. People try and put me over, but there's regulations. I can't play with them no more. Married to the game, yeah, I'm married to the pain. Look, I never changed, I'm stacking up this cane. Bro, I think crazy, yeah, my body K.
Philippe seems to have been lost in a bizarre gardening accident, so we're going to talk about his track without him. What did you think to that, Jamie?
I actually think it's great. I mean, I looked on the submission list and he said he didn't write this to the brief, but actually in some ways I think it has a lot of the elements that could work. I can definitely hear something like that on TikTok. I think probably why he said it's not written to the brief is because it's probably not as upbeat as some of the examples that they gave, and sort of like overtly happy. But actually I would probably pitch that, to be honest, for that same brief. Because I think it does meet a lot of the criteria and I think it sounds pretty good. There's a couple of like maybe sort of marrying up with the beat. It sounds some of the
phrasing
are just can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Just it's not quite marrying up at specific points. It's a little off. That would be the only thing I would change. They're easy to sort of fix. It's in terms of the sort of the placing of the vocal with the melody is just slightly, or at least to my ears anyway, at points just slightly off. I can't pinpoint it off the top.
Yeah, I totally agree. The phrasing of the vocals, some of them don't quite sit.
Yeah.
I'd pin that. That's my A&R ears. That's the only thing they can do, Jamie. That's it.
You're coming for my chops.
Brilliant. I mean, what I love about that, we had 5 such varied shortlisted tracks, and every single one of them had potential to do something with some tweakage. But it's just nice to see people creating, emotionally putting themselves out there, and it's just a wonderful industry to get involved with, isn't it? When you listen to people's worlds like in the way we are. So I've loved this session. So, Jamie, the time has come to choose 2 winners. So Jamie has been behind closed doors, listening to them, looking at the accompanying written bits they justified with, and he's got 2 places who are going to win a place at the next Talyard camp. Confetti will be paying you travel and accommodation, and Talyard are going to be supporting your actual songwriting camp attendance. So without further ado, the drum roll. Brrr.
So the first winner for me is a very clear winner, and I really want to just explain why I chose this person. This person I felt like had a track that was ready to go. Both tracks were really, really great. And it was just professional sounding. I mean, it makes my job easy. I hear it and I'm like, great, I can push it. And I think that's really important. So first up, Fabian Fox.
Fab Fox, name of the day and song of the day. Well done, Fab, brilliant. And what about the second one?
And the second person I've chosen, I guess, actually chose this for a slightly different reason. And I think the reason I chose this was because while it's not at a pitchable stage yet, I thought the vocal really moved me, and I know it moved you too, John, and I thought it was just really beautifully written, and I thought the ideas were really exciting and quite raw, and I'm excited to see what she will do on a songwriting camp where she has, where she's being teamed up with like pro producers. So for that reason, we've chosen Ellie Torrance.
Amazing. Well done, Ellie. Well done, Fab. Do you want to give a little comment, Fab, first on how that's made you feel?
Yeah, man, I'm over the moon, to be honest. If you could see the smile on my face, it's mental. Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys.
Brilliant.
I'm really happy. It's good to get that feedback from you as well.
Brilliant. Ellie?
Good to have you on it.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful.
Short and sweet. That's brilliant. Well done, both of you. I'm so pleased. And this has been such a great process for Confetti to go through, and we'd love to do it again. And getting the input from someone like Jamie has been so valuable. At the end of the day, we all want to make a living out of music, and commercial songwriting is something which is such potentially a lucrative industry. But I think importantly, and those who were there at the Mercuriadis talk last night, it's the fabric of our lives. So you are writing the next classics, and that just personally explains one of the major reasons that I'm in this industry in the first place. So thank you ever so much. Jamie, thanks so much for joining us. Would you mind just staying on the line while we just clear the room? Everyone else, thank you so much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed that.
Thanks, everyone.
See you in a minute, Jamie. Jamie.
Hello.
That was painless. I really enjoyed that. That was such a nice session.
Good. I'm glad. Sometimes I worry, like, because I do a lot of these kind of similar sessions as well, and I notice with the A&R sometimes they're like super polite, and I often think if you don't, sometimes it's like marrying that thing of being honest and giving them something constructive that you think will hopefully be beneficial without, upsetting them. It's kind of.
No, it was perfectly pitched, to be honest. And I think there are definitely some students on our year 3 who are definitely interested in coming on to the masters down there. And I think these sort of relationships, seeing someone who isn't us saying this is a good thing, is really beneficial. So I think we're going to get some conversions for that, which is going to be good for all.
Harry will be thrilled.
Harry's on commission, isn't he? He always says.
Yeah. He certainly is.
Jamie, thanks ever so much for making the time. That was really enjoyed that.
Really thrilled being a part of it, and thanks for having me.
No worries. See you
Great
soon.
event. Yeah, see you guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See ya.